Hello there, AP World History students, and welcome to yet another edition of Off to Tube. As today we're going to look at how to do a short answer question. Now, while this may seem like something that's completely new for you, it's actually not something totally totally different from what we used to do as warm-ups in class during term 3. Short answer questions are a different way for you to show the College Board that you know how to do the historical thinking skills that they have been testing you on, namely document analysis using or causation, comparison, and change in continuity over time. And so what these short answer questions do is they have you essentially utilize these what are normally essay skills in a shorter context. And so you're going to be doing things that are similar to writing an essay but on a much shorter scale. Now, similar to the multiple choice questions, typically short answer questions on the College Board AP exam will have a primary source or some sort of document or what they call stimulus to go with it. I know I didn't give you stimuli for each of those short answer questions because at this point I want you to just focus on the thinking skill and really the practice of writing answers down to them. But you can see here I've decided to use the example of option number 2 for this week, which is explain how Sikhism was a blend of Islam and Hinduism. That should also have a period at the end of it. Explain why Sikhism became a violent religion by 1750, and then explain the developments in South Asia that led to the development of a blended religion in South Asia. Well, to start off, I just want you to notice that this is one short answer question. Each short answer question has 3 parts, which is why the College Board gives you a total of 3 possible points for the short answer question. Now, you know me, I like to double what the College Board does, so each short answer question on your exam will be worth 6 points. What that means is that each individual part of the short answer question is going to be worth 2 points. So part A will be worth 2 points, part B will be worth 2 points, and part C will be worth 2 points. So in order to get the total 6, you have to answer each of those parts completely. So how do you then go through each of these? Well, the first thing to do is to make sure that you read the questions first. Once you've read the questions, understand what they're asking, that's when you then go back and look at the document. So here you can see I've found a poem by Guru Nanak, who is the founder of Sikhism, and one that could be used in order to answer the question. So I'm going to let you kind of pause the video and read it so that I can just keep going, but feel free to pause this video for a second, read through the poem, and then we'll kind of pick up when you're done. So now that you've read the poem, you can see that the poem itself is going to help you answer this first question. So this first question, explain how Sikhism was a blend of Islam and Hinduism. Well, in order to fully answer the question, the first thing that you have to do is simply answer it in a succinct sentence. And so you can see that I've done that here in part A. From this document, it is evident that Sikhism blended the monotheistic belief in Allah from Islam with the practices of worshipping deities from Hinduism. That's kind of the straightforward answer to the question. But the action word says to explain. So in order to get the full point for the short answer question, or for this section, the short answer question, you're going to have to then explain what you mean. So, actually, before I get to that, let me just show you where I got all this from. So, Sikhism blends the monotheistic belief in Allah from Islam. Now, they don't necessarily believe in Allah himself, but they believe in one single God. So you can see Ek Omkar, one God, one song, one creation. This monotheistic belief comes from Islam. And then where do I get this idea of the practices for worshiping deities from Hinduism? And I should spell deities correctly. Deities from Hinduism, well, the practice of chanting this again and again from the beginning of truth throughout the ages, especially the idea of the reoccurring creation and destruction stories that's in Hinduism, in this movement now, truth. So this idea of chanting again and again is going to be something that's blended from Hinduism. And so I have to then go and explain that in the rest of my answer. And you can see that I do so here, again, misspelling deities, but we're, working with what we got here. Muslims, building off the monotheistic religions of Judaism and Christianity, believe that Allah is the one true divine being who created the world and actively intervenes to save humanity from evil. There you go. That is a sentence that explains this idea of monotheism and from Islam. Then you have, in Hinduism, there are thousands of deities, but each family or individual typically has one deity they primarily pray through chanting the name of the deity over and over again, like is mentioned in the poem. So again, this first question here I have answered in 3 sentences. You want to be answering each of these parts in about 2 to 4 sentences. 2 to 4 sentences. And those sentences can be compound sentences like I have here, and you want to make sure you fully explain yourself. But in order to get the point, you have to answer the question and make sure that you explain your answer fully. And again, you can see here I do the same thing with explain why Sikhism became a violent religion by 1750. Notice there's a little bit of a comparison or a cause and effect part to this question. This is a bit of a change and continuity question, just to show you that thinking skills are a part of these questions. But here you go. Sikhism became violent because of the active persecution of both Muslims and Hindus under the Mughal dynasty. There's my succinct answer to the question. Now I then have to go and explain that answer in order to fully get the 2 points. So while it drew on influences from both religions, Sikhism was a separate religion that threatened the spiritual supremacy of the 2 major religions present in India at the time. Because of that, Sikhs experienced intense and violent oppression, causing them to have to fight back and arm themselves. And I probably should have said arm themselves and fight back. But and again, that's the reason why the Sikh symbol actually has 2 swords that are crossed, and those 2 swords are representing the violent nature of the Sikh religion, despite the fact that it is also a very peaceful religion. But the violent nature of the Sikh religion and history that it's had because it's been defending itself from active persecution. So again, just to reiterate, you have the succinct answer to that question, and then the explanation that's a little bit longer. And again, I think I did that in 3 sentences. So I've done 3 sentences for both of them. You want 2 to 4. And so the last question then is explain the political developments in South Asia that led to the development of a blended religion in South Asia. Again, a causation question here. So so again, I answer the question. India, a predominantly Hindu region, had been conquered by the centralized Islamic Delhi Sultanate and subsequently by the Mughal dynasty. Again, that's the answer. That's the political context for why there would be a syncretic religion. You had a majority Hindu population that was conquered by a minority of Muslims who are then governing over this Hindu majority. I then explain it by going, because of this, Islam and Hinduism were thrust together, often in conflict. Akbar attempted to ease this tension by being tolerant of all faiths, even promoting a new divine faith with him at the center. This meant Muslims and Hindus were living in the same cities and sharing ideas, which led to syncretic traditions. I have the answer. And you can really even put these first 2 sentences as the answer, but that's the answer. And then my explanation here. So again, I just wanted to show you how you should be answering these questions. Each short answer question is going to have 3 parts. Each of those 3 parts should be answered in 2 to 4 sentences. You want to succinctly answer the question and then provide an explanation for why your answer makes sense in another 2 to 3 sentences after that. The last thing I want to say about short answer questions is they are typically also spiraled. Remember, that was the term we used for the multiple choice questions. A lot of times, question A is going to be something where you will either use that document or something that's a little bit more straight and to the point. As they get further down, there's going to be more bigger questions that are asked. So you can see, how is it a blend of Islam and Hinduism? Well, that's just understanding basics about Sikhism. Explaining why it became violent is explaining, well, over time it's going to change. Do you understand those changes? And then the last question zooms out and tries to let you look at and tries to make you see kind of what's the bigger picture that's going on. Sometimes in this part C, you'll actually be looking at different places in that same time period. You might be asked about a completely different time period, possibly in the same place. So these questions are also going to be spiraled, so be expecting that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much it with short answer questions. They're not necessarily very complicated. Oftentimes they seem more intimidating than they actually are. Typically on an AP exam, you would be writing 3 of these. There would be a section of the AP exam that would have 3 of these questions that you'd be answering. We still don't know what the College Board is going to be giving you for the AP exam this year with the COVID-19 pandemic that's been changing everything, so that's still to be seen. But now you have at least a somewhat how to write these short answer questions. Again, if you have any other questions or anything, you can use those Zoom meetings to ask me any questions that you have. You can also send me an email if you want to say, hey, is this something that seems to be hitting the criteria for responding fully to a short answer question. Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a great one.